Coming up on the show, we have some history in Week 4, and I say it with a big smile. We'll get to that in a second. And only one undefeated team remains. The Skyhawks are the lone undefeated team left in the Rhode Island Legacy Leagues this summer. 4-0. It took 4 weeks, and they defeated the Road Dogs in what was a battle of 3-0 teams. The Skyhawks prevail. We're going to break down all the Week 4 games. And we'll play some fun game at the end. We'll see. Might do a sleeper team. We're not doing the one-word game. Jake's first time here. We have some analysts standing by. He's going to have to wait for the one-word game. But we'll get to the show in a second. First, this episode is presented by Initial Response Restoration, 24/7 emergency services. For water, fire, storm, and mold damages, contact Initial Response Restoration. They're good people. They missed a good game in Week 4, by the way. The Air Mambas get the win. That's like their team. He was coach 1 week, so shout out to them. We restore, you recover. All right, guys. Some good games to get to in Week 4. But first, the theme song.
Yeah, this is the Legacy League. Tell me where your legacy be.
The Skyhawks, the Halfway Crooks, the Air Mambas, and Rags narrowly all get wins. Not all narrowly, but the Rags narrowly did, and the Air Mambas took care of business in their rivalry game. But this is the Week 4 postgame show. Matt, Jake, Aidan standing by. I'm Joey. We'll get to all the Week 4 games. Again, everybody, thanks for listening, and we can just kind of go right in order, and it's been a good order. So whoever made the schedule did some good stuff. We'll get to the history that was made during that 7:30 game in a second. But first, it is Rags getting their second win in a row. So they are back even at 2-2 after a rough start, and kind of everyone's starting to kind of figure out their place kind of, and then we'll start to kind of be able to predict some upsets. But it is Rags getting the win to kick off Week 4. Let's get the right score. 81-79. We talked about it, Rags, and it was a close game throughout, and at some points we were almost like, we kind of saw Gold Rush get blown out the past couple weeks, and it never came. So shout out to them for that, the 2-point loss. It was really, definitely a single-digit game. It was a 3-pointer by Gold Rush kind of at the end to make it 2, but it was a free throw game, and the Rags had to make some free throws, and that's all you can hope for, because as we saw at the end of the Skyhawks game, missing some free throws left the door kind of slightly open. Some teams not able to capitalize, but Josh Perry and Rags, 23 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, led the way. Wook, Jaquan Cornwell, 18. No flips this week, right? Or did he do one? Oh, yeah, there was one. All right. It's his one token backflip. I love it. And Devontae Davis, 12 points of his own. For Gold Rush, Brandon Taylor with 28. And 6 of 13 from 3, and there was at least 3 or 4 in a row there. So you start doing some math on the rest of it. If he could have made a couple more, obviously, things would have been a little different. But a big game for Brandon Taylor. John Toby with 18 and Kyle Wolf with 11. We'll go Matt first here, even just on this one, and kind of Rags getting that second win in a row. What was the difference? Because it was a close game throughout, right? And I think Rags was kind of gaining some momentum. And then we talked about, Brandon Taylor hitting those threes and getting hot for that stretch and kind of erased that deficit. Gold Rush had the lead at times, in large part thanks to some of those threes. So, Matt, what was the difference for Rags, and how did they, narrowly get the win? You're muted. The rookie. It's all right. Go ahead.
And I'll just start again. You started off by talking about teams finding their place. Well, last night was Gold Rush not accepting that, saying, we've had struggled the first few weeks. Tonight is going to be our night. And, they got shots and baskets from, people who, they got baskets from all over the place, all different sort of places. And I think that maybe surprised Rags a little bit. I think they're a team, they don't have the height that some of the teams have. Some of the teams have 3 or 4 guys that could really take over a game. And, they're a team, I think, they're gonna have to be focused. They're going to have to be, ready to go right away. They're going to have to be, balls to the walls for the full game. And I think they were a little bit surprised by what Gold Rush came out for, especially in maybe the first or the second thing. But the difference for me was I thought Josh Perry took over, at the end. kind of went out. There may have been sort of an injury thing there at the beginning, but he came back in, and that's when he took over. He just made shots, and he sort of took over, and he was the difference in the end for me.
I'll put Aidan on the spot with this one, and Gold Rush. What did they do, Aidan, to kind of keep it close besides, Brandon Taylor, and shout out to him again. But yeah, what did Gold Rush do to keep it that close? I mean, they had the lead at times, right? And this is something we haven't seen in those first 3 weeks. And so we're trying to, figure out, and I'm going to do some tiers in between all of this in a second, because I think it's starting to kind of get pretty clear. Grouping wise, I don't think there's one clear-cut best team, there's one clear-cut worst team, but kind of we're seeing kind of where people fall. But Aidan, what changed for Gold Rush this week?
I think they're starting to get their rotations, and a lot more players starting to feel comfortable in the league. Like you said, Brandon Taylor had 6 threes. Now, did we unlock? Was this the Brandon Taylor unlocking his bag game? And John Toby, again, he's their main ball handler, and I think he needs to facilitate while also looking to score at any given time. And I was mentioning this earlier in terms while we were at the table, and like I just said, they need to figure out their rotations. They were able to keep it close because Rags had some bad misses, but Gold Rush also played great defense. Kyle Wolf had my stats, can't read the stats. I think he had 3 steals. Mine was going all over the place, but their consistency on defense and never giving up on the play. Like Matt said, both teams are shorter than most of the teams, and you kind of need to. You have to play with more heart when you don't have the height. And I think that's what Gold Rush did, and I think they need to continue to build on this and maybe tweak some of their rotations. I think all 4 of their best players should be on the court at all times, or a combination of 1 to 2 of them, because if one of them comes out, Rags can go on a run, or any other team can go on a run, especially in this league. Points keep riling up. So Gold Rush is looking good. They're 0-4, unfortunately, but they're looking good this week, and I hope that they can continue on with these playing good games.
And it's only right we bring Jake in a second, because a close game like this, there's enough to talk about. But even just looking at the stats again, I mean, rebounding even, 38 to 37. 11 offensive rebounds to 10, right? It doesn't even matter which team had which, because that's the same thing. Turnovers, 8 to 6, right? And so kind of the difference, the same amount of field goals made, but Gold Rush actually had more field goal attempts and more threes. So go figure that one out. That pace and just making 6 more threes than Rags is probably what kept him in it, right? And was able to kind of, that goes for a lot of teams, whether it's the NBA, legacy leagues. Like, if you can make some threes, that cancels out some of the other stuff you may not be doing as well. And I think Rags, I'll say it, not as passionate. I don't know. It was kind of like it wasn't there early, and I think let's kind of take that Lob City game, I think 2 weeks ago now for Rags, right? Like, that was like full intensity, and that's the right word, full intensity from the jump, which it had to be for them to be as in a good position against Lob City as they were. We've talked about it, lead in the third quarter, in that game. The intensity wasn't there for them in this one, and so I expect it to be there next week, or we're going to have a different conversation maybe about this team. But Jake, go wherever you'd like, but I mean, that intensity wasn't there. Gold Rush kind of capitalized, and then it took, so then I'll give them their credit really quick before we go to Jake. Rags made the plays down the stretch, right? Got a couple stops, made their free throws, took care of the ball, all things that can easily, get out of hand, and then you look up and you're trailing, with 12 seconds left. You're like, how the hell did this happen? So credit to them for all of that. It probably shouldn't have got to that point, right? From what we've seen from this Rags teams, and that's a credit to Gold Rush, again, playing really well in this game. But you can look at it both ways, Jake. Like, where was that intensity?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, it was visible on the court, and I think it was good in the sense that Rags was able to face a little bit of adversity and fight through it. But I think what helped is, number one, Josh Perry, and then two, Woot Cornwell. They just play with so much emotion. I think it's just so contagious out there. Like, when they get going and they're vocal, you could see the Rags, like, pick up their play. You could see that they were kind of kicking into another gear there. And I think that's also going along with that, kind of what Gold Rush is missing, is that vocal leader, that emotional guy who, like, he's going to go out there and do what he's supposed to do. You know what I mean? Someone who's, like, reliable in a sense, that kind of calming presence.
Brandon Taylor might be it. We're gonna see. We're gonna watch him. The Gold Rush next week take on the Road Dogs coming off a loss. They cap off Week 5 looking for their first win, and Rags kicks off Week 5 against the now 3-1 Halfway Crooks. That's a transition, guys. History for the Halfway Crooks in Week 4. Listen, it's been, 8 years now. Well, we're getting there. 7.5 years of Rhode Island Legacy Leagues. Lob City in different forms and the Halfway Crooks in their only form have been around the entire time. 10, 11 seasons, 11, 9 of 11. So this is the 12th season. So 11 full seasons of both of those teams being in the league. And it's the first time ever the Halfway Crooks have defeated Lob City. 1-15 now all time. And listen, we'll take it. Okay, I told you it was going to be painful for a lot of people to listen to this, but I did my homework. The closest they got in the regular season before this, because mind you, 15 other losses, okay? They were all blowouts before COVID, so that's easy. A 1-point loss in the summer of 2023, 2 years ago in the regular season. A 3-point loss in winter 24 in week 3, and they played again in week 6 and lost by 7. So some single-digit regular season losses. They played 3 times in the playoffs, and Lob City's won them all. One in the semis, I believe it was by like 20, in the summer of 2018. And then back-to-back finals losses where, summer 23, Aidan, were you there? Was that? I can't remember.
That was
the other
no,
extracurriculars happened after
2023.
that game.
I think I was there watching it.
Okay, right, but not there. So
yeah.
let me listen. That was the best Halfway Crooks team that we've had. And three. I'll go on for a second. Three Twin Towers. Dom Langston, Jeff Winchell, Devin Devon Pena, Spence Freeman, Jared Hansen, Mike Wilbur. That. And some of these names will mean something to the listeners. For the injuries to happen how they happened, where Taj goes out, in between the semis and the finals, one of the best defensive players. Dom Langston lands wrong after hitting 3 threes in the first quarter of the finals, can't finish the game, and to lose by 11. What a season. And so, Cody will smile listening to this, and Josh Smith and all of them, Dub, because, talk fondly of that team, and it's sad it couldn't be capped off for the championship. But let's get back to this week. I digress on the history lesson. But it's been a long time, okay? And what I thought about today looking up those stats, not that a broken clock is right twice, but eventually when you play enough times, the other team has to win one. Right, and that's kind of what happened this week. So I'll throw it to you guys. Only 4 guys for Lob City, so there's that, which has kind of been a common factor, and that's what Cody Crawford said. I was texting him today first, is he okay? And he said, yeah, he just knew if he showed up, he was going to play and didn't want to risk, hurting himself more. So I get that, that's good self-control, because once you're in the gym, yeah, it's very hard to, not play. So shout out to Cody. But Cody was not there. Lob City had 4 guys. And I should probably give you the score. They fall 80-63 in what was a close game throughout. Lob City had the lead at times. It took a 19-point edge in the fourth quarter for the Halfway Crooks to finish this one off. So close throughout. You can kind of just figure out what happened in the fourth quarter. People get tired. It's expected. The Halfway Crooks capitalized and get the win and improve to 3-1. And this is now Lob City's second straight loss. So they fall to 2-2. So things get interesting. Especially with the tiebreakers, as this is the only time Lob City and the Halfway Crooks will meet in the regular season. So if those 2 teams finish with the same record, that would be a tiebreaker for the Halfway Crooks. That's still 4 weeks away when we get to playoff talk. But we'll let Aidan, if you would like to continue on that summer 2023 team, shout out to those guys. It's a long time previously from now, so a lot of those guys are even more washed up than we were, which is why the team looks as different as it does. But I'll set Aidan up. Sorry. Nick Lemoyne with 21 and 9. Kavai Simpson, 20 points. David Devon Pena with 16. I think it was Matt kind of talking about having those 3 or 4 options. Well, there you go. When those 3 are able to kind of be as effective and efficient, all shooting over 44% from the floor and up, that's a big help. Almar Sabat with 27, and he showed up a little late, so he jumped in and dropped 27. Hachi Amini with 20, but 4 of 15 from 3, right? And so, Aidan, having 4 guys is what it is. It sucks. I wish they had more guys because that would have been a fun game, and I am expecting to see them again. the top 4 teams all play each other a ton of different times, and so many more fun matchups to come. And hopefully, Lob City can get more of their guys there to be at more of a full strength. But what happened in that fourth quarter, Aidan, in this one?
Well, like you just said, the main theme of this season so far and the past couple seasons for Lob City has been guys. They only had 4 players, and I think they were just getting tired, unfortunately. And that happens when you only have 4 guys. But Lob City, despite them struggling, we've never seen a Lob City like this before, 2 straight losses. Despite them struggling, Almar still played very well. Now, he was 12 of 19. Just for me, this isn't meant to bash him. I thought he missed more shots. He was so upset with himself that he was missing wide open makes that it felt like, he missing 15 shots instead of only missing 7 throughout the whole game. And I think being able for that to translate to an intern watching, being like, this guy looks like he's missing 15 shots when you look at the box score, he's only missing 7 or 8. It's a big difference. And like you said, Halfway Crooks and Matt said, 3-4 guys that are starting to gel together. And I think this is it's a great win for you guys, like you said, the first time beating Lob City. But it also, I think again, it was the unlocking of David DePina. Like I've seen him play before. I know what he can do. He can run downhill. He's a bigger guy. He's a matchup nightmare for most of the teams. And if he's scoring 15 to 16 points, missing only 2 to 3 shots every single night, the Halfway Crooks will have that competitive edge over multiple teams because your third best guy is scoring 15 as well. Now, for Lob City, again, like I just said, main theme is just guys. And it's hard to talk about a really good team like that because despite having 4 players, they'll still play their heart out. Nuri's out there playing obviously they played the whole game, but Nuri's out there coaching, feeling everybody out. And, you could see that with Lob City towards the end of the game. They weren't all fully getting back on D, caused a couple fast break points, which is why I think there was that 19-point Halfway Crooks over them in the fourth quarter. So it's just kind of, where does Lob City go from here? How do they continue to be the Lob City of the past, given that they only have 4 guys? Now, I don't think they'll struggle with that. It's kind of, they're struggling right now, but I don't think they will continue to struggle with that later down on in the season.
I couldn't find it. I was trying to dig for which season. There's a season somewhere. They lost 2 games, multiple times, kind of, 2021, 2022. They were 6-2, 7-1, and most of the time would still go on to win the title. There was a season, I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm just imagining this, but I thought they were 5-3. I thought it was one below that, maybe not. Either way, they've won a ton of games and they'll be just fine and they'll bounce back. Jake, your first time kind of seeing these 2 teams play. What stood out for the Halfway Crooks for you in this one?
Yeah, so just kind of going along with what you said, how Lob City was shorthanded, I think what Halfway did very well was play that transition game, because you guys were playing at a pace that it was just impossible for Lob City to match because everybody knew eventually you're going to get tired. And I think, going along with what Aidan was saying, if you look at what Lob City did, they really didn't make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, they missed some shots, but they didn't really do anything wrong. It was just the nature of the game. But I think you could tell that they still have that fire, which I don't think they're going to lose. So you could tell they're still going to stay at the top of the league. But I think that's also a huge momentum game for Halfway Crooks to be able to say we finally got over that hump, and then you can worry about something else. You don't have to have that hanging over your head anymore.
I can finally sleep good is what Jake is saying, right? I can finally, rest my head. Yeah, great. But, turnover battle, Lob City won it, right? 8-5. So to your point, it wasn't, either team really, Halfway Crooks just took advantage in that fourth quarter and ran them out of the gym. Matt, because it's such a big matchup and history was made, what stands out about either team, Lob City and the Halfway Crooks?
Well, speaking on a historical perspective, the Bulls won when the Pistons got old. The Lakers started to win when the Celtics got old. And, of the top 4 teams, when I watch Lob City, they seem like the team that's the most in flux. As far as, figuring out how they're going to play, having enough players. And, sometimes I have to answer these questions on a from a photographer's perspective. And the things that stands out about that team's, particularly from the photographer's lens, is the facial expressions of Omar Sabat when he's like making plays. He's just like, he just comes at you, like the way he plays. And Cody plays a lot like that too. But in going back to what Aidan said, and just thinking about the game, the way they play can be so exhausting. And when you don't have those players, it's tough. And the halfway crooks, I've said before, they're my favorite team. Like Nick and Kavi, just the skills that they have and the things they can do, the physical gifts they have are just unbelievable. And if you, as you said, they have a guy who can be the number 3 guy and potentially score 15 points. That equals rest. For those guys, potentially to save those gifts for later if they need it.
Cody and everybody on Lob City will just clip that first part of what Matt said, and we'll see you in August when Lob City makes their run, but not in a bad way, Matt. But they'll be like, all right, yep, they're gonna store that one away, give them some whiteboard material. But yeah, that's enough halfway crook slander. I appreciate it, guys. Halfway crooks next week. Kick off week 5, like we talked about, taking on Rags. So that'll be a good game of two teams kind of right there near the middle. And Lob City takes on the Air Mambas following Halfway Crooks and Rags in week 5. All right. The battle of 3-0 teams coming in. We talked about it in the beginning. The Skyhawks, missing some key pieces, which should have been mentioned earlier, remain undefeated. 69-60. It is the Skyhawks. So that's kind of one of those, and that's kind of where the scores have been a lot this season, right? And we talked about the playoffs kind of slowing things down. Well, when these top teams are playing each other, it's creeping down into that level, right? Like race to 80 is one of my favorite things to do. And it's like, all right, can this team get to 80 against Lob City, right? And if they can't, it gets a little tricky. And it's funny, I think the Halfway Crook scored exactly 80, right? 80, yeah. So it's funny that it's like on the nose, that number holds true. And it's just a pace thing and the amount of time, and just from seeing so many of these games, sometimes in the playoffs it's more like a race to 70. And that's my point in this game. 69-60, the Skyhawks get the win without Omar Rahman and without Demoy Ennis, who's also, noticeably not there when he's not there, because he's able to look down into the rim and do, changes the dynamic of that team. So shout out to those two. But Noah James led the way, 22 points, probably, and I'll say it because Noah's awesome. 9 of 17 probably doesn't make him happy, but he obviously will take the win. Jalen Benson was one of the ones I was talking about, unfortunately missing some free throws down the stretch and kind of leaving the door open, but he had 19 and was a big part of kind of playing that second offensive option for the Skyhawks. Zeki Burgess, 2 rebounds is wild. I'll take care of that. He just walks into more than 2 rebounds. But 18 points, 8 of 9 shooting, and a noticeable game from him as well. For the Road Dogs, they nearly, fought back and tied it. It was a very close game going into that fourth quarter. Joe Secator with 16 led the way. Views with 14 and 3 rebounds. Ethan Austin with 9, 5 of 21 from 3. And so, we'll let you guys all get in on this game too, and then we'll chop down the last one. Jake, you haven't gone first yet. Skyhawks get the win. We start the game, and it's, a lot of Noah, which we kind of had a feeling it would have to be with who was there. And that's not a shot at any of the other players, because they all played well enough for them to win this game in the Skyhawks. But you would like to see a full-strength Skyhawks team against a full strength, which everyone was there for the Road Dogs. And we talked about kind of just the threes not falling for the Road Dogs. 14-7 turnovers, the Road Dogs had more, and the rebounds were about the same. They were able to get a couple more offensive rebounds, but Jake, the Skyhawks, they get it done. And so how did they do it missing some of those key pieces?
Yeah, so this one was really fun to watch. It was a great game, back and forth. But like you said, obviously the Skyhawks are missing some big pieces, but watching them play, it didn't seem like they were missing much, if that makes sense. Because I think Noah James, just with him, ball in his hands, he's just so smooth and just so fluid with the way he plays. Like, if you need a quick bucket, he'll get you a quick bucket. If you need a lengthy possession where he's got to get his teammates involved, that's what he would do. And I think getting Isaiah Schroth involved, number 33, that was huge. I think he took a lot more initiative than I've seen him take in prior games, which is a good sign for the Skyhawks. But and then the Road Dogs played well. I think just one of their Achilles heels is going to be they have so many good guys where when things gets tough, who's going to be the guy to make the shot? Like who's going to dribble the ball up? I think sometimes they go into a little bit of an ISO attack instead of more of a team-based offense. But I mean, they're still a great team, and we're going to be hearing from them again.
Lob City's over here like, oh, we'll take a sub. Can we borrow somebody? Like, what the hell is this? You guys have like 9 guys, and Lob City's over here having their 4th guy walk in after the game has started. You know, Matt, you've talked a lot about kind of both of these teams and you know your favorite teams, the Halfway Crooks, which I will bring up at least 3 times a show, which is great. But in this one, you know, you can go in any direction. But was it something the Road Dogs didn't do? Or more of kind of something, you know, that you noticed the Skyhawks doing?
I mean, I think the scariest thing about the game was something the Skyhawks didn't do, was not having number 4. And, you know, the more I see Noah James, the more I begin to think he's the most complete offensive player in the league. Just the various things he can do, the ways he can beat you. It's hard to tell what he's going to do with the ball because he seems like limitless. But you know, I just my big thought coming away from the game is I hope this doesn't get in the Road Dogs' head. I felt like more than any other game, and maybe that was because of the competition, and it was, you know, 2 of the 4-0 teams, 2 of the last ones left, and you know they had a lot of pep talks, you know, talking about, you know, how the first quarter went. You know, there was a lot of that conversation because you know seeing that team come out and beat them the way that they did, you know, missing those key pieces. You know, that's something that can make you start seeing ghosts. So, you know, I hope that doesn't happen. They have a lot of talent, and you know, that was their night, and I think that was the Skyhawks' night, and I think that's the way you have to go forward with it, thinking about it. Next time is going to be our night.
Yeah, don't read into this because there's like other implications when I say what I'm about to say of who would play who in the playoffs. But I would love to see these 2 teams at full strength play again. That is not, again, do not read into what that means for the other, you know, teams in the league and how that would have to shake out for that to happen. But Road Dog Skyhawks in the playoffs would be awesome at full strength. I'd sign up for that, to see that again. Aidan, you just go wherever. I totally forget what I was going to put you on the spot with. Yeah, go ahead. This one, I mean, two top teams, and it'll come to me. I had something good and I blew it. I'm not perfect. It's all right. Go ahead, Aidan.
Yeah, like you said, and we've all said, 2 top teams in this league. I think I mentioned this. I think this win should mean more to the Skyhawks than they think. Now, they might think it means a lot because they had 5 guys. I know Tabari only played a couple minutes, but still, having 4 guys, Noah Saff for a little bit, but having 4 guys, missing Omar, who's going to average 30 points a game when he's there, and missing Damoy, who will give you another 15 with his head above the rim, like you said. Having only 4 guys and going in and beating a Road Dogs team that is so deep, has experience, they've won a title, they have really good matchup nightmares, it should mean a lot more. But with the Road Dogs, I'll say this, very talented team from top to bottom, no matter what. And like Jake said, they play a little bit too much ISO. They don't live and die by the 3, but they'll take enough threes, or they'll drive to the rack and they'll miss, and they lose their possession. But I think they need to figure out their rotations. Again, they have 9, 10 guys maybe that could all start on any Legacy Leagues team, and I think they're a well enough team to realize that they need to make some changes maybe and play more as a team. Like you said,
This I have it back in my head now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the guy to say it, and you can jump on this because it goes on to the rotations question. I'm watching the game, having a great time. 5 or 4 minutes left. Kareem Cooper's not in the game. Okay, interesting. 3 minutes left. Still a very close game. I mean, it finished a 9-point game, and that was after it was like a single possession game. Okay, they were following with a minute left. Like, this was a 1 possession game. I don't think we saw Kareem Cooper the rest of the way. And so if he's not their best player, because that's a whole separate argument, and I kind of want to be on Kareem Cooper Island. Like if it's still, unoccupied, I'll claim that right now, right? One of my favorite players to watch and just impacts the game so many different ways. If he's not their best player, he's one of their most impactful. And in a game like this, in a close game down the stretch, I would have liked to see him on the court. So, I mean, that was what I was going to say, and I was kind of saving that for you, Aidan. That speaks to the rotations, right?
Yeah, like you said, it's just kind of a rotation thing. Now, they brought in 4 new guys. Josek's new this year. Ethan's new this year. Phillips new this year. Karan's not new, but he's back. He didn't play previously in the winter. And Aiden Viveros is new. Now, when you bring in 5 guys like that, they're all really good, but you need to understand rotations. And I think every single one of the Road Dogs players, I don't think they have an ego, and I think they're okay with subbing in and out, and I think that's why they go through so many rotations and so many different matchups, is because they play well as a team, and they're okay with like, oh, hey, can I get a couple minutes? Or they're okay with switching it, when in reality, like you just said, I think Coop should be in the late game situations because of the defensive impact he has and his ability to drive to the rim and his defense, clearly.
Last thing, they almost should go 4 in, 4 out. Like, and I realize that means taking some other players out, but they should try it. I mean, even just for the first half, and that would kind of split the minutes and then kind of see who has it, right? I'm usually against that. There's one team that did that actually, like full time. They were like 5 in, 5, or 4 in, 4 out. We're doing it the entire season. So again, I'm usually against that, but I think that might, because then you would get comfortable playing with certain lineups, and sure, that can hurt you if you're not with that lineup at the end of the game, maybe. But they've all played together enough where it's not a huge thing, and that would get everybody into a rhythm to kind of see, all right, is it Shaq's night, right? And Shaq impacts the game all over as well, but is it his night? All right, is Kevin Views hot tonight? All right, like let's kind of go to him a little more. Is Ethan, able to attack this type of a team that we're playing? So, Road Dogs, we'll see them again next week against Gold Rush at 9:30. And the Skyhawks take on the RI Warriors for the first time in Week 5 as well. Let's get to that last game, Air Mambas and RI Warriors. And it is the Air Mambas getting their second win as well. So we have 3 2-2 teams now, and the Air Mambas are one of them. 85-43. This was our largest margin of Week 4. Air Mambas only made 3 threes and still, won by 42 points, right? Math on the spot. So that's something. They were able to kind of get inside and took advantage of that. Aidan's making a face. We may never know what that face is about because he's not going to talk about this game. Matt, Air Mambas, Air Mambas get the win. I don't even know what to say about this game. Just Matt, go ahead. I mean, there's so many things come to mind, but what comes to mind for you, Matt?
Last week you asked us to describe sort of, the matchup in one word, and the word I chose was skill. The real word I meant was moves, and that's what I think of when I think of the Air Mambas. They've got certain players that have all the moves, like they're human highlight reels, and they have 3 players. I mean, when I think of like the bottom 4 of the league, they're in there right now for me. I've said multiple times they're the team that I want to see more from to know exactly sort of who they are. And in the last 2 games, they've really kind of blown out the competition. They're a team that if you were looking to sort of who's going to climb out of the cellar, they're on sort of that cusp. And there's a few 2-2 teams now. That could really happen as far as the power rankings go and stuff like that. But, from that game, I just thought, it was about the moves, and I thought the Mambas had moves that, I didn't necessarily see from the RI Warriors or haven't quite seen yet. And that was sort of the difference for me, guys who could just force their way in and make plays. And it was a very forceful and passionate game.
Yeah, passion's a good word, Jake. And, we're going to see more from the Air Mambas, and I was kind of looking at their schedule quickly, but Lob City next week, so that's going to be interesting for them. They played a couple seasons ago and had Lob City in the regular season. Went to overtime with them and barely lost. So they've been right there with that team at times. They then get Rags, the RI Warriors again, and the Halfway Crook. So some work still to do for the Air Mambas, but what did they take advantage of, Jake, in this one?
Yeah, I think in this one, an overwhelming theme I would use is discipline. I think the Air Mamas did a lot better job at just staying focused at playing the game of basketball. I think there was a lot of external factors of the game that were kind of pulling some of the Rhode Island Warriors' heads out of the game. And I think Air Mamas just, their roster, like their full energy. Like that they're going to bring 110% on defense, offense, transition. They're not going to take a play off. And I think that's a very valuable trait in this league. And I kind of going along with what Matt said, they're right on that cusp where it's like you see spurts where they could be a top team. And then there's times when they kind of take their foot off the gas, so to speak. But, I mean, this was a great win from top to bottom for them.
And they're kind of in that log jam, right? We talked about it, 3 2-2 teams. And that kind of leads into this last segment, so that's perfect. So I'm going to list you guys the teams, but I want you to know the question ahead of time, okay? And it's our last segment presented by Initial Response Restoration. Which team, and I'm going to list them in order, get to each pick a team, do you think is going to move the most in the standings from where they are now to the end of the season? Okay, so I'm going to do the tiebreakers for you, and I'll list them in order. This is kind of what you're going to start with, right? So as of today, Skyhawks are 1. We'll get Road Dogs 2, Halfway Crooks 3, Lob City 4, just tiebreakers, just go with me on this. Rags 5, even though they're all 2-2. Air Mambas 6, RI Warriors 7, Gold Rush 8. Okay, so Skyhawks, Road Dogs, Crooks, Air Mambas. Oh, sorry. One more time. Skyhawks, Road Dogs, Crooks, Lob, Rags, Mambas, Warriors, Gold Rush. Okay, I'll put Aidan on the spot first. So which of those teams is going to move the most? I mean, we're at the halfway point. 4 games left before the playoffs. Which team is going to move the most?
Can I give a reason?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, you are not confined to one word, yes.
Okay, so I may steal these 2 guys because we just talked about them, but I think it's the Mambas. Now, like we just said, I think they've found their rhythm. They added 2 new guys, both named Chris Vincenzo, Chris Vague. They kind of drive to the rack a lot. And I was just looking at the stats from last year. They only won 2 games all of last season, and now you're entering week 4 with 2 wins. So I think that needs to motivate them to be like, hey, 2 wins in 4 weeks, where it took us 9 weeks to get 2 wins last season. So yes, I do think the Mambas will jump up there.
All right, Matt, who you got?
I was going to agree with, I'm sort of torn between, I want to say the Mambas, I want to say Lob City. I think the Mambas could move up, and I'm worried that Lob City could move down. That some of the struggles that, I've talked about, and maybe I've been a little bit too hard on them, but some of the things I have seen, like, just worry me a little bit about them. I'd say for next week, I could definitely easily see the Mambas being the team that moves up. And by the end of the season, I'm worried that, of the teams that are stuck at the 4 right now, Lob City could be the most likely to be closer to the bottom.
I smirk because I've seen this too many times, and so it's your first time, and that's okay. I mean, listen, this is a different Lob City team, right? If you can have anybody on your roster you want. If you only have 4 guys, it does get tricky to continually pull out these games when there are other teams on a similar level, right? I'm not saying they're better than Lob City, but Lob City, isn't far and away the best team, right? Where like if you have 4 guys show up, but you have clearly the most talent, you can probably still pull some stuff out, with a lack of depth. I think depth is going to be important, and so, playoff Lob City is a different crew, but we're talking about the regular season. So Matt makes a good point, and they're currently at 4, right? So, we'll see, and some tiebreakers definitely will come into play. It looks like with kind of how things are shaking out. Jake, your team that can move the most from now to week 8.
Yeah, so I was basically with you guys thinking either Air Bombers or Lob City, but just based off of purely who can move the most, I would say Lob City. I mean, the history speaks for itself. Winning that many championships, you have to be pretty good in this league. And obviously we haven't seen them at full capacity yet, but just seeing like the individuals that they have on their roster, you can kind of tell if they piece it together, they can be a really good team. And like you said, I think that margin between top teams, it's not huge. So I think you could see them skyrocket pretty quickly.
Lob City is also a great pick because they're in the middle. And so you don't have to specify which way a team is going to move, right? So if Lob City kind of goes down, you're like, oh, see, I said they were going to move the most, right? And then if they go up, you're like, oh, no, see, I was right. I said they were going to move the most. So strategic picks as well. Lob City finishes with the Air Mambas, Skyhawks, which is I can't wait for that one. In week 6, Road Dogs again, and the RI Warriors. Road Dogs have Gold Rush, Crooks, which will be great. Another great week 6. Lob City again, and Rags, which could be the Road Dogs kind of don't have the easiest of the schedules here, but everyone kind of plays every team once, so it just depends on who's played who when. Skyhawks get the Warriors. This is the last team, I promise. The Warriors, Lob City, the Crooks, again for a second time the Skyhawks get, and they finish with Gold Rush. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see kind of which team can move the most, and at the halfway point, if the playoffs were to happen today, we would have like a 1-8, 2-7, right? Kind of like March Madness numbers, 3-6, 4-5. And so that would set up the Skyhawks on the same side as Lob City, if we play this out, and the Road Dogs and Halfway Crooks potentially on the same side in the semifinals, which I think the question to keep an eye on, and we'll kind of end on this, I think there's the 4 top teams in a divide, and I think Rags is trying to break into that top 4, and we've kind of talked about the Air Mambas kind of also kind of pushing on the ceiling, right? Like, can we bust into the top 4 and kind of join that party? It's going to be interesting in those first round matchups if either of those teams can, because that's when it matters. Can they break into the top 4 and get to the semifinals? And I think the heavy favorites, if we were betting men, would be the top 4 teams to advance and be facing each other in the semifinals, which would be good entertainment. But obviously the other 4 teams want to have something to say about that, right? And want to crash the party and pull off a quarterfinal upset to get to the semis, because it's one and done. And so they don't have to beat a team 4 out of 7 times. They have to win one game on 8.5-foot rims in the legacy leagues. And I think the playoffs start a little early this year. So the end of July, the last Tuesday in July, will be the quarterfinals, and all the teams will play. So that's kind of what we're pushing for. About a month away before the playoffs start. Guys, good job on the week 4 post-game show. We got to do more playoff preview stuff. That's the fun stuff coming up. But good job being put on the spot. You all picked the same team. It's all good. No one picked the Halfway Crooks. I get it. Listen, it's Matt and myself did enough Halfway Crooks, slander's a strong word, but we did enough of that for one episode. I think next week there's more opportunities to do that. But guys, good job. Matt, Jake, and Aidan, I'm Joey. Everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in week 5.